20.
How are you?
I'm good. 23 was in
Township Council for the Township of Vernon for Monday, May 11, 2015. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public and the press. On January 4th, 2015, it was posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, all in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-7.
Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Kadish?
Here.
Councilmember Lynch?
Here.
Councilmember Murphy?
Here.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Here.
Council President Rizzuto?
Here. Would you please stand with me and join in a pledge to our flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening we have a number of proclamations I'm proud to read. And the first one is for Police Week, which is May 10th through May 16th. And before I read the proclamation, I would like to ask for a moment of silence. We have a number of officers, law enforcement officials who, during the course of a year, lose their life in the performance of their duty. But I don't think many of them come with a degree of disregard for human life and such a heinous crime as the loss of Patrolman Brian Moore in New York City. So I would ask for a moment of silence in respect for his memory. Thank you. I think it just goes to show you the innate danger, the innate uncertainty of that particular job. You never know who you're going to run into when you make a stop. So whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated the week of Sunday, May 10, 2015 through Saturday, May 16, 2015 as National Police Week, and whereas the members of the Township of Vernon Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the Township of Vernon, and whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, and by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocents against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the men and women of the Vernon Township Police Department unceasingly provide a vital service, now therefore I, Council President Patrick Rizzuto, Mayor Murata, and the Vernon Township Council do hereby proclaim the week of May 10, 2015 through May 16, 2015 is designated as Police Week in the Township of Vernon, and call upon all citizens and patriotic civic and educational organizations to observe this week with appropriate ceremonies and observances in which all of our community may join in commemorating law enforcement officials, past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their communities, and in doing have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. Given under my hand in these free United States, in the Township of Vernon, State of New Jersey, on this 11th day of May, 2015, to which I have caused the seal of Vernon to be affixed and have made this proclamation public. Chief, come forward. This is for you. There's a proclamation for yourself and for one to be displayed in the department. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
recognitions like these are always appreciated. Obviously, what's going on in our country with the way police officers are being treated is a sensitive issue. It's a morale issue, and things like this go a long way towards putting us back on the right path. So again, we thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Before you leave, I'd just like to say thank you for your service to our community. I think that it shows by the attendance here tonight that the leadership in the police department has grown to a point where we have some excitement in the ranks, I believe. Wouldn't you say, Chief?
Time to time.
It's a very good answer.
The understated chief of police.
But I would just like to say personally, thank you for your service to our community. And I know that when I get home, I feel safe, and it is because of all of you. Thank you.
Also, the month of May brings a call to mind of the many men and women who lost their lives in defense of our country, giving the ultimate sacrifice. And those who, while not losing their life, did shed their blood. And those who gave service under fire and risked their lives. The Memorial Day weekend, we know, is usually started off with seeing our members of the VFW selling the Little Red Poppies. So we'd like to remember the Buddy Poppy Month for May 2015. Whereas the annual distribution of Buddy Poppies by the Veterans of Foreign War of the United States has been officially recognized and endorsed by governmental leaders since 1922. And whereas Buddy Poppies are assembled by disabled veterans, and the proceeds of this worthy fundraising campaign are used exclusively for the benefit of disabled and needy veterans and the widows and orphans of deceased veterans. And whereas the purpose of the sale of Buddy Poppies by the Veterans of Foreign War is eloquently reflected in the desire to honor the dead by helping the living, 2015 Buddy Poppy Drive is being held during the month of May. And whereas the Wallkill Valley VFW 8441 and its Ladies Auxiliary promote the sale of the Buddy Poppy throughout the township, and whereas we urge all patriotic citizens to wear a Buddy Poppy as a symbol of gratitude to the men and women of this country who have risked their lives in defense of the freedoms which we continue to enjoy as American citizens. Now, therefore, I, Council President Pat Rizzuto, Mayor Victor Murata, and Vernon Township Council do hereby proclaim that May 2015 is Buddy Poppy Month in Vernon Township. We hereby urge the citizens of this community to recognize the merits of this cause by contributing generously to this invaluable program, given under my hand in these free United States, in the Township of Vernon, State of New Jersey, on this 11th day of May 2015, and to which I have caused the seal of the Township of Vernon to be affixed and have made this proclamation public. Would the members of the VFW and the closes your proclamation. There's a second there. Use.
Thank you so
My
much.
pleasure.
And
Congratulations.
let me extend an invitation. Would you like to give a small speech at the Memorial Day
I'd be proud to.
ceremony?
I'd be privileged.
Okay, and that also goes for the mayor,
Thank you.
who's not here, but I want to extend that to.
I will make sure that he gets the information.
Okay, so we appreciate that. Okay, and,
Thank you for your service. Welcome.
and we'll be in touch for the time.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Good enough.
Thank you.
This last proclamation is one that I'm extremely proud to to mention. Yes, Memorial Day. About the initially called Decoration Day has been a way of life for the United States for our fallen soldiers. Did the VFW member leave?
Yep.
Okay. I'd like to read the Memorial Day proclamation. Whereas Memorial Day, originally called Decoration Day, is a day of remembrance for those who have died in the service of the United States of America, and whereas it is difficult to prove conclusively the origins of Memorial Day, President Lyndon Johnson in May 1966 proclaimed that Waterloo, New York was officially the birthplace of Memorial Day. And whereas, regardless of the exact date or location of its origin, one thing is clear: Memorial Day was born out of the Civil War and the desire to honor our dead. It was officially proclaimed on May 5th, 1868 by General John Logan, National Commander of the Grand Army of the Republic, in his General Order No. 1. The 30th of May, 1868 is designated for the purpose of strewing flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion, and whose body now lie in almost every city, village, and hamlet churchyard in the land, he proclaimed. And whereas on the first Decoration Day at Arlington National Cemetery, 5,000 participants decorated the graves of the 20,000 Union and Confederate soldiers buried there. And whereas after World War I, the holiday changed from honoring just those who died in fighting the Civil War to honoring Americans who died fighting in any war. And whereas it is now observed in almost every state on the last Monday in May, with congressional passage of the National Holiday Act of 1971, now therefore I, Council President Patrick Rizzuto, Mayor Murata, and the Vernon Township Council do hereby honor our servicemen and women from every branch of service who have served in all the nation's wars for their enduring dedication to the preservation of America and our way of life. Given under my hand in these United States, in the Township of Vernon, State of New Jersey, on this 11th day of May, 2015, and to which I have caused the seal of Vernon to be affixed and have made this proclamation public. I will make sure I get this over to the member of the Vietnam vets. My last proclamation is one that its origin goes back quite a few years. The individual that was being honored, Mr. John F. McGowan, was a guest in my home, and we had an opening on the Board of Education while I was president. And as usual, Mr. McGowan had an opinion, and I said to him, Mr. McGowan, your opinion is quite valid. Why don't you join the board? We have an opening, apply for it, and if selected, make your point of view known to the public. And lo and behold, he did, and 30 years later, he still remains as active as ever and thoroughly more versed on the activities of a Board of Education and education policy in the state of New Jersey as ever. So, for Mr. John F. McGowan, whereas it is a pleasure and an honor to recognize citizens in our community for their special actions and continuing service, and whereas there are many that step forward in dedication and commitment to provide service above oneself in our daily life of our community, and whereas John F. McGowan has unselfishly devoted 30 years of continuous service to the Board of Education of the Township of Vernon, and whereas John, a graduate of Seton Hall University, a Vietnam combat veteran, as well as infantry sergeant, has also served as president of the Board of Education and provided strong and effective leadership. John is also an active supporter of Vernon High School's athletics program, Now therefore, I, Council President Patrick Rizzuto, Mayor Murata, and the Vernon Township Council, on behalf of all citizens in our community, take this opportunity to honor John F. McGowan for his continued service and dedication to the residents of the Township of Vernon. We all thank John and wish him much health and much success in his future endeavors. Given under my hand in these free United States, in the Township of Vernon, State of New Jersey, on this 11th day of May, 2015, and to which I have caused the seal of the Township of Vernon to be affixed and have made this proclamation public. I make a number of times, I find the occasion to go up to the school to visit some of the athletic programs. Being a frustrated, baseball player and looking back at my time playing in high school, and invariably while sitting with John watching a game, students come by and they always stop by and say, "Hi, Mr. McGowan, how you doing?" They know this man, they know he thought well of them and he thought of them during the time that they were in school. So John, would you please come forward? This proclamation is for you. In a second. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And there will be 33.
Yeah.
One thing that Pat, the story that he just told about us, the encounter we had at a cocktail party at his house, the people that were there, who I had not met before, were Howard Burrell, who has done great service for our community, Vic Murata, Larry Parker, who has moved on to Florida, but he was on the board at that time. And the subject came up, and it was foreign to me. The subject came up regarding the microwave towers. And Mr. Rizzuto was belaboring the point that he had been expected by people in the community to pass a resolution on the Board of Education to ban the microwave towers in Vernon. And while that was going on, and it got somewhat heated, I can remember taking a sip of the adult beverage that he had provided for me. I turned to him and I said, "What the hell business is it of yours? You're on the Board of Education. Give it to the town committee." And that's when he said, would you like to be on the Board of Education? And about 2 or 3 months later, a vacancy occurred and I was appointed. And that was 30 years ago. And during that 30 years, people have been saying to me, "Why? Why do you do it? What's wrong with you? You're crazy to do this. It's self-punishment. Why do you do it?" And the answer then was, as I realized at the time, and it still remains, it's the money. And I don't mean the money we're paid, but it's the money we spend on the Board of Education. In my 30 years, I have been party to spending over $1,400,000,000 taxpayer dollars on education. And I think it's important that people govern that responsibility. And that's why I have stayed on this long. And I encourage the people in our community to come to the Board of Education meetings when we prepare budgets, because we no longer, as a community, vote on the budget. And I voted against that measure. I think that it's imperative that the community votes on the budget. And I think it's imperative also that community members understand what we're doing financially in the Board of Education. We control 60% of the tax dollars that are accumulated from the residents of this community. This has been a wonderful period of time with as much joy as there was frustration. Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your service. May I have a motion to open the floor to the public for public comment?
Motion?
Motion made by Mr. Lynch,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Kadesh. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Floor is open to the public. If you have any comments, please step forward to the podium. Tell us your name and the area of the town that you reside.
Hi, my name is Kathy Whitty, and I live up in Aspen Woods, and I'm a Realtor. As you know, we've been here before. On that 1512 that you very nicely did, I mean, you did away with the 9 pages and brought it back down to 2. But I have some questions on that, and I don't know if you can answer them, but we need the answers before you can really vote and pass it, okay? Are we as Realtors, or the buyer's attorney, or the seller's attorney, are we going to know or have access to find out if there are fines on a property by coming to the town? I can't find out if somebody's taxes are paid. I can't find out if somebody's delinquent unless it's in the paper. I can find out if there's a lien on a property by going to the county or the county records, which are now posted. If there's a fine put on a property, assessed, how will we be able to find out?
The same way that you find out whether taxes are overdue or water or sewer bills are overdue, it's recorded with the tax collector.
And we will be able to find out by going in there, having nothing at all to do with that property, just going in and saying, I need to know if there are fines on this property.
Yes.
Because I've gone in there, asked about about delinquent taxes, and I was told I couldn't have it.
It's public information.
Okay, I'll be quoting you on that when I go there. Second, when the fines, and I realize the fines are, you have no control over the size of the fines, but will we be able, I forgot. Okay, when the, when these are assigned, will it be when, my concern is when mortgage company A is in foreclosure, mortgage company A has the loan, and they sell that loan to mortgage company B, who sells it to C, all while it's in foreclosure. Will they be, how will they know that those fines are attached?
The same way you will at the tax collector's records.
Okay, okay, I thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions, comments?
Hi, Jackie Espinoza, JCPNL, 56 Hampton House Road. Sorry I haven't been here in a while. I keep missing this night's meeting. The only thing I want to address is that we do have the tree crews in the area, Nelson Tree Service. I just want to make sure everything's okay. From what I've heard, we haven't been receiving too many complaints, and Nelson's usually really good about handling things. So my forester's been happy, but we're trimming every circuit out of the Vernon sub, so we're going to be here for a little while. If anything comes up, you can always call me and we can address it.
Okay.
So just want to make sure it's working as good as I think it is.
So far, nothing has been brought to my attention.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything from the police, so
Great. Okay, that's all.
thank you.
Unless you guys have anything from me? All good?
Anything from the council? No, nothing, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Are there additional comments? Not, I'll ask for a motion to close the meeting for the public.
Motion?
Motion made by Mr. Lynch. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Wetzel. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Mr. Zuckerman, may we have the mayor's report?
Thank you, Mr. President. We finally received our single-axle dump truck that we ordered back in August 2014 with a snowplow, just in time for snow to be over. Our sweeper is en route, whatever that means in English, I'm not sure. But we are renting a sweeper and an operator, and that should be coming very shortly, today, tomorrow, the next day. And we will rent that, and we will charge it against the purchase of the sweeper. You asked us to do a study of the health, and we've started that drill, but there's more to it than just costs. There's licensing, there's regulations, there's a myriad of things in talking to the county health department that we will be studying as we go through it, and when it's complete, we will be turning it into you. That's
Okay.
my report.
Thank you.
Bill, a question. In the bills list, there's a payment to the county for health benefits. What is that about?
We get, we have people that were on our payroll back when it was transferred to the county, and by contract, we have to pay the county for their health benefits. This goes back
So they're
several
basically
years.
still our employees.
Well, they're not our employees, but they're our obligation under contract that was written back when.
And, you know, actually, just to add a little bit, Councilman Kadish and I, we attended the meeting at Lafayette where Senator Oroho attended last week, I believe it was, and there were obviously representatives from many towns and the county. And I did ask the question that Councilman Wetzel addressed about the 2%. And actually what they said is because it is a health department, it may be one of the exemptions because health insurance and all, that's an exemption. They said they believe that it is an exemption. Of course, there's a lot of, it's one of those that could be a loophole. So it's not cut and dry that the health department would come into play there. So that's all.
Items for discussion. I'm sorry, minutes. All members of the council have received copies of the work session minutes of March 30th, 2015. May I have a motion to place the minutes on the floor for consideration?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Lynch. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Murphy. Are there any questions, comments, deletions, or additions to the minutes?
Actually, maybe if I would just give our clerk just a couple spellings of some of the names, if you, just for a couple of the members of the public that did speak. One was John Levitt and one was Wally Zoch. I'll just give her those spellings. That's all I had.
Being no other comments, may I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Kadish?
Abstain.
Councilmember Lynch?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto?
Yes.
Carries so moved.
Now moving for items of discussion. I've had copies of the resolutions supporting the protection and support of federal military bases located in the state of New Jersey. Given to all council members, the federal government has been in recent years relocating and closing military bases across the country. Most notably, Fort Monmouth in New Jersey was closed in 2013. The remaining bases, the closing of the remaining bases has a negative effect on the local economy. This resolution supports the maintaining of the military bases in the state of New Jersey. I would ask for a motion to place this resolution on the floor for consideration in support of the existing resolution from Andover. And any discussion on this? May I have a motion, please, for discussion?
Motion?
Yes.
Motion made by Mrs. Murphy. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Wetzel. All in favor signify by saying aye for discussion.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The issue is open for discussion. One of the things I would like to point out is that closing these bases, in view of the response time that we saw on 9/11, I question whether closing McGuire Air Force Base is in our best interest, since responding aircraft would have to come out of Washington, D.C., in a threat to New York City, or down from Massachusetts. Certainly, I believe, even though these aircraft might not be stationed there, they might have the ability to station some at a future date, hence the ability to provide closer protection to the regional metropolitan area. So It's one of the reasons, aside from the fact that we are looking at maintaining the economy based upon the number of people who are working in these facilities. So,
The way I see it, Council President, all too often, political figures get involved in decisions they should stay out of. And all too often, we see that if you leave the military alone and let them do their job, they actually get the job done. And I think that the more that politicians get involved in deciding whether to leave a base open or close, the more of a problem it's going to be. If I have anything to say about it, I'd like to keep that every single one of the bases in New Jersey. We are ground zero for anything that occurs, and we need to know, and we need to have this, the ability to respond in kind. Nobody ever thought that somebody would fly a plane into the World Trade Center. That was a paradigm for most people.
I don't disagree with you, Mr. Lynch. However, while leaving the decisions to the military, I feel is very appropriate, too frequently the military is given its marching orders by people outside the military, and I think
I understand.
I think it only helps our case by letting our elected representatives in the state and the county know exactly where the local governments stand as representing their constituency. So hence my feeling on that.
Well, I just wanted to mention that actually back in April was when the president of the Morris County Chamber of Commerce, actually, he was at the freeholder meeting, and as I gave you copies of the newspaper article. And what he actually explained to the freeholders was that, and in this article it says this, although the BRAC process was supposed to be apolitical, as it turned out, Picatinny only got half of what it was supposed to, what was supposed to get. So there's about 700 employees that are working at Picatinny that are from Sussex County. So if a base like that were to close, I mean, you're looking at well-paying jobs that would directly affect the county.
Yep.
And I know there's 5,000 or 6,000 employees there. But what he also explained was that back then when they did those closings, New Jersey was, I believe they were a little bit behind the eight ball here, where they were not prepared for what was happening because some of the bases in other states started picking through what they wanted, and they were making offers as to what work they could do. And so New Jersey was just not prepared. So this is to prepare to retain what is still here in New Jersey.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, I think if the Picatinny Arsenal were ever to close in this area, there would be a depression because of all the military people that work there and the private citizens that work there that would lose their jobs. And the ripple effect throughout not only Morris County, but Sussex County would be unbelievable. And it has to stay open. It has to stay open.
Can I entertain a motion or to develop a resolution in support?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Mrs. Murphy, seconded by Mr. Kadish. I'll ask the clerk to have the resolution made for the next meeting. Okay. In support of the maintaining the Andover resolution, I believe it's keeping the facilities open. Based on that, I'll have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Kadish?
Yes.
Councilmember Lynch?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Webb?
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Second resolution was brought to our attention in support of Sussex County Utilities Authority, SCUMA, its opposition to a proposed amendment to the Sussex County Solid Waste Management Plan. The County Municipal Authority is contemplating an amendment to permit Grinnell to accept bulky waste in addition to the construction waste. there was concern about how this may negatively affect SCUMA's revenue, and SCUMA is opposed to the plan. I suppose talking about this is not, something that may not be the most interesting, but it does affect us by virtue of the tipping fees and how those fees are passed on to the townships by virtue of the assessments from SCUMA. So I thought perhaps this would be an opportunity for members of the council to express their opinion on this, whether or not we should support the opposition to the proposed amendment. Do I have a motion? Do I have any comment on this?
Is this something that would pertain also to the MUA?
No, it's more of solid waste, so it doesn't really fall into that. It more or less falls into the category of household trash,
But
disposal materials.
it doesn't affect anything with the MUA, with the
No.
sewer?
It doesn't affect your MUA. SCUMA keeps two separate budgets.
Okay.
They keep a solid waste budget, and they keep a utility, a sewer budget. And so this would impact the solid waste budget and not the utility budget.
Okay.
There are residents who, rather than employ a disposal service, garbage disposal service, take their own refuse to the dump, and that would affect it. So if, looking at that, if we want to, oppose.
But this is just about recycling materials, is it not? It's not about garbage.
No, the recycling materials would, but the amount of recycling materials would affect the amount.
Well, it would cause a competition and thereby lower the prices that would be getting.
No, on the contrary, according to them, it's not going to work that way. Perhaps you have a comment?
I was only going to say, under normal circumstances, creating competition and lowering prices sounds like a good idea,
Yeah.
except for the fact that through your county tax base, you're underwriting the landfill. And so the landfill having lower prices and lower revenue could, depending on your viewpoint,
Be
could
detrimental.
impact the county budget, which, as you know, could impact all of the municipalities.
It would create, accordingly from the resolution from Stanhope, they feel that the impact of SCUMA's revenue stream would face upward pressure on tipping fees, including household waste. And as it says, whereas Sussex County municipalities presently provide for the collection and distribution of residentially generated ID10 household waste, they feel that this passage of this amendment would negatively affect their budget, SCUMA's budget.
Brenda, you're located in Sparta.
So, do you want to support the borough of Stanhope and their opposition to this? Developing a resolution in their support? Or would you prefer not to do anything?
Well, Brunello's in Sparta, right?
Mhm.
Has Sparta indicated pro or con?
No, I haven't heard.
I have not heard, but Sparta wouldn't have a role in the licensing. It would be through the county solid waste management plan, which then goes down to DEP to be approved. So it's not changing the structure of the building or anything that Sparta would have regulatory control over.
I'd like to support this opposition to this amendment, because essentially what's happening is they're bringing in more bulky waste to a limited area, and it's going to basically fill it up faster.
Point well taken.
I will entertain a motion, or I will make a motion that we develop a resolution in support of this. Resolution from the Borough of Stanhope in opposition. Is there a second? The resolution falls. Thank you for lack of a second. Okay. Consent agenda. Recognizing Municipal Clerks Week. The municipal clerk is the oldest of public servants in the local government, along with the tax collector. The profession traces back to the biblical times. Beginning of the office of city clerk can be traced back to 1272 AD in the history of the Corporation of Old London, England. This resolution gives recognition to not only Vernon's municipal clerk, but the municipal clerks of all of New Jersey, and marks Municipal Clerks Week of May 3 to 9, 2015. By the way, our municipal clerk, Lauren Kirkman, sits on the clerks, I'm sorry? The Association, thank you. Resolution 1589, Chapter 159 resolution requesting approval of revenue and appropriation, amending the 2015 budget as a revenue and appropriation of $100,747.15. The township has been awarded an additional $100,747.15 for the Highlands Plan Conformance Grant, and as our budget has already been adopted, it is necessary for the township to amend its budget to reflect this additional revenue. This resolution amends the budget to allow for this additional revenue. Resolution 15-90, resolution authorizing the Township Council to reject all bids for the Vernon Township Police Department impound building. The township advertised and went out to bid on April 7th for construction of the police impound building. There were 3 bids, only 2 were responsive. The 2 responsive bids were over the township projected budget for the project, and therefore it is recommended by the township engineer that the township reject all bids to release the bid bonds. Resolution 15-91, authorizing placement of a banner across Breakneck Road for Christ Community Church. Each year, the Christ Community Church in Highland Lakes holds Vacation Bible School. This resolution approves for this year, as in prior years, for Christ Community Church to hang a banner across Breakneck Road displaying the dates of this year's Vacation Bible School. Resolution 15-92, authorizing placement of signs in various locations for Vernon Chamber of Commerce. Similar to the above, the Vernon Chamber of Commerce has requested to place signs around the township to promote their Merchant Street Fair. This resolution gives authorization to post the signs. Resolution 15-93, authorizing the application for New Jersey Department of Community Affairs recreational opportunities for individuals with disabilities grant. The township in the past has been lucky enough to receive in the past the recreational opportunities for individuals with disabilities grant. This resolution provides the application for the grant for 2015-16 so the township may provide therapeutic horseback riding for persons with disabilities. The state changed the grant cycle, so our application is a bit earlier than in past years. This, for those of you who may know, is for the Winslow Academy activities, which we have supported in the past. Resolution 15-94, extending the existing contract to Air Group for preventative maintenance for the HVAC system located in the Township Municipal Building. The current maintenance contract for the municipal building HVAC system is expiring. The Township's purchasing agent recommends extending the current contract through April 30, 2016. This resolution authorizes that award. That concludes concludes the consent agenda. May I have a motion to have the agenda placed on the floor for consideration and discussion?
Make that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Wetzel. Is there a second?
Second that.
Seconded by Mr. Lynch.
I have a,
Any comments?
yes.
Questions?
On 1588, I would just like to recognize Lauren Kirkman. She is our municipal clerk. She does a phenomenal job in her duties daily. If you ever got a chance to see her work, it makes you tired looking at her when she's working. She has got a stack of paper on her desk that is unbelievable, and what's unbelievable is she knows where every single one of them pieces of paper are going and where they came from. And I just think she's a phenomenal employee of the town, and I think she deserves a round of applause.
Are there any other comments or questions?
Yeah,
on
Bill,
consent?
could you talk a little bit more about 1590? What's the proposal instead?
What the proposal is, we're going to relook the impound to see whether we can do part of it with our own DPW people, whether we can contract it out, or whether we have to relook at the size and the makeup of that impound.
I mean, I don't want to dispute the engineer's estimate, but I think $30,000 or even $15,000 is far too low for a building that size. I assume, I haven't seen any of the specs on it, but I assume that the pole barn would be very similar to the one I put up and the one that the Walkers put up. It might be a little taller in its position, and mine costs $70,000, so I don't think these bids are out of kilter.
He's going to relook at, we're going to relook at the needs with the police department and then come back with a revised plan. We will move forward with an impound building of something that the town can afford.
And I was curious, is it going to be a gravel floor, or is it going to be a cement
I'm not sure.
floor?
That's one of the issues in the cost. If it's concrete, it's one number. If it's gravel, it's another.
Right.
I'm not sure what they're planning.
Any other comments? Questions? Not, call for roll call.
Councilmember Kadesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Lynch?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto?
Yes.
Motion carries to pass the consent agenda.
Ordinance 1514 was to be heard this evening, but its hearing was predicated on the completion of certain documentation. That documentation was anticipated, did not arrive. Hence, upon the advice of council, I'm asking that this, withdraw this ordinance from consideration this evening.
And Mr. Council
Perhaps you
President,
wanna-
I think you can, we're expecting an opinion letter that the council should have when they vote on this, and we're expecting it in the next cycle, so you could make the motion to table it to the next
I'd like
meeting.
to make that motion, we table it.
Okay. Motion has been made to table. May we
To
have,
the next meeting.
to the next meeting, may we have a
To
roll?
the next meeting, yes.
Councilmember Kadesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Lynch?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto?
Yes.
Carries the table to the next meeting.
Ordinance 15-15, an ordinance of the Township of Vernon, County of Sussex, State of New Jersey, authorizing the sale of property owned by the township and not required for public purposes, more commonly known as Block 103.01, Lot 22. The NJSA 4812-13 authorizes the sale of public real property not needed for public use. When the real property in the form of a non-conforming lot, it must be first offered to contiguous property owners for sale by auction. This ordinance authorizes the auction to the contiguous property owners on June 8th at 7:30 PM with a minimum acceptable bid of $500. May I have a motion to introduce 15-15?
Second.
Motion is made by Mr. Lynch, seconded by Mr. Kadesh. All in favor? I'm sorry, roll call, please.
Councilmember Kadesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Lynch?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Yes.
President Rizzuto?
Yes.
Motion carries to introduce ordinance 1550 with a public hearing on May 20th.
Bond ordinance appropriating $1,534,557 and authorizing the issuance of $1,266,625 in bonds or bond notes of the township for various improvements or purposes authorized to be undertaken by the Township of Vernon in the County of Sussex, New Jersey. This ordinance authorizes the issuance of new debt in the amount of $1,266,625 for the purpose of repairs to Lake Walk Hill Road. May I have a motion to introduce ordinance 1516 with a public hearing, to be held on May 28th, 2015?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Lynch. Is there a
Second.
second? Seconded by Mr. Kadesh. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Kadesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Lynch?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Yes.
President Rizzuto?
Yes.
Motion carries to introduce the public hearing on May 20th.
Thank you. Ordinance 1517, there's 17, an ordinance providing for the improvement of various roads in and by the Township of Vernon, the County of Sussex, New Jersey, appropriating $169,000, therefore constituting proceeds of obligations of the township heretofore issued. This ordinance takes $169,000 of the funds allocated specifically in Ordinance 14-12, and reclassifies the funds for different projects. Specifically, these funds will be used to repair roadways, guide rails, drainage projects in accordance with the township's road improvement plan. It does not borrow any new funds. May I have a motion to introduce ordinance 15-17 with a public hearing to be held on May 28, 2015?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Lynch. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kadesh.
Councilmember Kadesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Lynch?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto?
Yes.
Motion carries to introduce ordinance.
Thank you. And ordinance 15-18, an ordinance of the Township of Vernon in the County of Sussex, New Jersey, authorizing the purchase of various equipment and repairs in, by, and for the township pursuant to NJSA 40:56-1, and appropriating therefore the sum of $154,000, and providing that such sum appropriated shall be raised from capital improvement fund account of the township. This ordinance also does not borrow any new funds, but utilizes funds from the capital improvement fund for the purchase of police vehicles, 911 upgrades, and a building department vehicle. May I have a motion to introduce 15-18 with a public hearing to be held on May 28th, 2015?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Lynch, thank
Second.
you. Seconded by Mr. Kadesh. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Kadesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Lynch?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Yes. Yes.
Council President Rizzuto?
Yes.
Motion carries to introduce public hearing May 20th.
Moving to second readings, this is a public hearing, second reading of an ordinance. Ordinance 15-11, ordinance extending the lease between the Vernon Township Board of Education and the Township of Vernon, and sublease agreement between the Township of Vernon and the Dog Owners Gathering Society of Vernon Township Incorporated for certain unimproved real property identified on the official tax maps of the Township of Vernon as Block 133, Lot 2.05. The township had a lease agreement with the Board of Education for the property that is used as a dog park. This ordinance authorizes the continuation of those leases. May I have a motion to open this meeting to the public for comment?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Lynch. Is there a
second
second? Seconded by Mr. Wetzel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion is carried. Meeting is open to the public for comment on this particular ordinance. Seeing that no one is coming forward, I ask that the meeting be closed to the public.
Motion.
For ordinance 1511. Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lynch, seconded by Mr. Kadesh. Thank you. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Questions or comments from members of the council? Excuse me, may I have a motion to adopt this ordinance for consideration?
I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Mr. Lynch. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kadesh. Now, is there any comment from the council?
I guess we're going to give this a new leash on life.
That's really good, Dan.
All of our four-legged friends have been very good citizens.
Dan's barking out responses tonight.
Certainly he's not barking up the wrong tree.
That's right.
No other comments? I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Kadesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Lynch?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Yes.
Council President Rosino?
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt ordinance 1511.
Thank you. A second reading on ordinance amending Chapter 447 of the Code of the Township of Vernon entitled Property Maintenance. This ordinance creates the obligation for out-of-state creditors to register as an in-state representative or agent with the municipal clerk. It also authorizes a fine in the event if the property is not maintained. The language regarding the fine and amount of the charge mirrors that of the state's statute. That the in-state representative or agent is someone who is a registered agent, appointed by the bank in accordance with NJSA 40:10B-51. A1, it does not mean the real estate agent. May I have a motion to open the meeting to the public on this ordinance?
I'll make that
15-12?
motion.
Second.
Seconded, motion made by Mr. Lynch, seconded by Mr. Kadesh. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Anyone wishing to comment on this ordinance, please come forward. Give us your name and the area of town that you reside.
My name is Rachel Hendricks. I represent the Sussex County Association of Realtors members, and we thank you for the revision. We thank you for going back to the drawing table with the previous ordinance. However, we do still have some concerns and some questions with regard to this ordinance. One is we want to comment that we are concerned that this could become an impediment to the sale of the property because we have the same goal that you do, which is reuse of the property. Once you have new viable ownership of the property, it can be properly cared for. However, at a $1,500 per day fine, it doesn't take long before the accumulation of those fines could cause an impediment to the ability to purchase that property financially, because those new people are going to be trying to get a mortgage that's based on that appraised value of the property. So we're wondering if the council can, under the statute, and might be willing to consider a cap on the total accumulated amount to prevent it from becoming too great of a burden. Even in criminal fines, there's a maximum. So we wanted to know if that's something that you are able to and would consider doing. That's my first question.
So the language that the council is considering adopting is from the state statute, and it doesn't, there's no automatics with it. It goes to the municipal court judge, and the municipal court judge makes the decisions. The type of per-day fines here, the goal is not to raise money. The goal is to secure compliance, and the same type of fines are in the Fire Prevention Code, in the UCC, and all other preventative codes, again, with the idea to secure compliance. The vast majority of these cases are resolved with nominal fines and compliance. It's only a situation where something was truly a threat to health, safety, welfare, the well-being of a neighborhood, and the creditor, for whatever the reason, didn't respond. By having it open-ended, it gives the municipal court judge as big a hammer or sledgehammer as the municipal court judge needs. So that's the idea behind it, and the structure of it was really set up by the legislature rather than this council. They're just adopting it.
So the judge would be determining the final amount of the fines?
Correct.
So in the case as what Kathy Woody was asking about before, at what point would you know if you had an ongoing issue with a property that was subject to closing, have the ability to find out what exactly the total accumulated amount of fines would be?
So
To the tax collector.
sure, but the process is, you know, multi-step. Again, engender is really developed to secure compliance. So typically this, I'm just going to use an easy example just to illustrate. This is a situation where a house is in foreclosure, the grass is 20 inches long, and there's actively rats breeding in the backyard. The neighbors are not happy. They come down. It's a health issue. They come down, and either the construction official, the zoning official, or some other municipal official always sends warning letters. Warning letter, it goes unheeded. Eventually, a summons can be issued. The summons, right now, if you had to issue I won't pick on an individual bank, but if you had to issue a summons to one of the major banks, they're not headquartered in New Jersey. A municipal court summons can only be issued to someone here in New Jersey. The real importance of this statute, and then the council adopting it, is that they're required to appoint an in-state representative to accept service. So that municipal court summons, instead of it going to Pittsburgh or Buffalo or New York City or some other place where the municipal court can't reach, it goes to the in-state representative who's required to respond on behalf of the creditor. That person is summoned to municipal court and then has to explain to the judge what they're going to do to fix the situation. In my silly example, it would be to cut the lawn, you know, or hire an exterminator or whatever would be involved. If that happens, I've seen dozens, if not 100 or more of these situations. Typically, the judge gives a nominal fine. If the situation gets worse and it's affecting the neighbors, the judge sometimes threatens and sometimes issues larger fines. If the fine is issued, the creditor then, mostly a bank, has the opportunity to pay it. If they don't pay it, then it gets adopted as a lien by this council and communicated to the tax collector. The only time that it becomes a lien against the property, transferring to the next property owner, is if it's adopted as a lien by the council and then goes in and is recorded at the tax collector's office. Before that, it's an individual municipal court fine against the entity.
When the individual who is accepting service, who, as I understand it, is designed to be the company contracted for maintaining the property, is that something that is then also sent to the creditor, so that if, for example, what we've seen is that nationwide there's a number of examples where the creditors have established relationships with maintenance companies that are supposed to be doing that work. However, even though they're billing the creditor, the work is not being done.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the agents that are envisioned by this statute and this ordinance would not be maintenance companies. They would be corporate representatives, the same way that an out-of-state corporation licensed to do business in New Jersey is required to appoint an in-state representative. That person is typically an executive, a lawyer, an accountant, some arm of the bank. It's not an independent contractor, and it's not a maintenance company.
Okay, so it would go directly to the creditor. Okay.
Correct.
The second question is, how are you going to enforce this ordinance fairly?
Well, I think that whether it's, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Bill, go ahead.
Whether you have a number of codes, and you trust your code enforcement official to administer them fairly. But with all of your code enforcement officials, there's always a check and balance. With your construction official, it's the Construction Board of Appeals. With this being in town, it's your municipal court judge. So you're hiring someone to be independent, and their mandate is to be fair, but the check and the balance is the judge, and because it's a judicial system, you have appeals even from that judge.
When my members of the Government Affairs Committee met and brought up that question, I think they were more orienting to which properties would get focused on, some being skating by and others having enforcement action taken against them. How will that be addressed to ensure that it's even enforcement rather than selective?
I suppose a code official, you know, in response to a complaint from a neighbor, somebody, you know, living nearby would go and visit the particular property. Certainly that's the way you find a lot of situations. As I explained earlier, when the original one was brought up, my concern was not to create hardship, but too many people have come to me and other council members and said, you know, how can we stop these houses from looking like they're being run down and being pilfered and they're being used for other things other than a standing house? And I thought that this type of a resolution to the problem would be very welcomed. As far as being fairly applied, complaint leads to rather a response by the township, as it should be. Our code officials do go around on their own, and they see what's very, very obvious. I certainly, I'm sure other members of the public pass by houses that we know that are foreclosed because they look foreclosed.
Right.
You know, so do I make a comment on that? I don't know. Maybe if I happen to think about it at the time that I see the code enforcement official, I will, maybe not. But certainly, I don't think this is being envisioned as a hammer to punish anybody, other than those who fail to follow the law and make it very, very difficult for somebody who lives nearby and is trying to maintain their house in the appropriate manner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the last
Excuse me, Rachel, and just one item that I wanted to add to that is hopefully the code enforcement officers, whichever go out, address homes that are occupied, not just looking at, because you get a complaint from a neighbor that there's a house that somebody moved out of and it's going into foreclosure and the lawn's, you know, not taken care of. But we have homes that exist in town where people are living and that they routinely never maintain their homes, and there's trash outside. So I think there's two issues here in this ordinance, and I think maybe that was one of the items that was really being addressed, is with the original ordinance, items that are happening routinely that have nothing to do with foreclosed or bank homes were not being maintained or addressed. So
I just had a woman call me last week. Situation one situation was buzzards on the roof. And the buzzards apparently were coming from a dumpster from a restaurant. And the second complaint
call
was
the Board of Health.
property maintenance. The individual next door was throwing his garbage in the backyard, and he was doing body work in the driveway. So,
Right, had nothing to do with bank-owned homes. And
no, it doesn't.
Right.
So what I did was to get in touch, and Mr. Zuckman got in touch with the Board of Health, Sussex County, and also the woman in
Our zoning
on
officer.
zoning. So it's not only, hey, I don't want a foreclosure next door to me, and I don't think anybody else does either.
I don't think anybody wants to be part of a foreclosure either.
Yeah, no, that.
I think we can all agree on that.
Thank you. Is there anything else?
One more question is, will you consider, or have you considered whether or not you will maintain any properties, whether you will have, contract with or have your staff do any of the actual lawn cutting, et cetera? There are towns in New Jersey that are doing it, so we thought that we should ask that question, if that's your intent or not.
The question that you're asking is not really contemplated by this ordinance, but is within the same chapter. Under your current ordinance, the town has the power to come in and take corrective maintenance if health and safety are implicated. How actively you do that is up to the administration and the various officers.
Your question on that is not something the township the council should address, but rather the mayor.
The mayor, okay. Thank you very much for your time. We
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
very much. Are there any other comments?
Barry Martinson, Vernon. I think I mentioned it at the last meeting, but I realize this is a condensed version and you kind of killed the other one, but we were promised that you discuss it. And I think a lot of these questions could have been handled if we had had another discussion. You had also mentioned about committee members, and a lot of people volunteered, and we heard nothing, or at least I didn't. I'm assuming others may not have either. And to not send a notice, especially when you did the killing of the other one, to let us know what was going on so we could have provided feedback is very poor in my opinion. It shouldn't have happened, and or there still should be a public work session and or maybe a little group to look at. Looks like most of the questions were answered, but in this kind of format, getting the questions answered properly doesn't always happen. One of the questions I have is that I've noticed in other situations, in other townships, I looked at a lot of them, normally there's 2 criteria before you can consider it, so that people don't just say, the lawn's too high, send the zoning officer out, okay?
Excuse me, we're not talking about...
Would you?
No, excuse me, let me answer you. We're not talking about changes in 447. We're simply adding one particular aspect, and that is the registration of the particular individual as an out-of-state agent. Now, what was there is there, so.
Thank you for interrupting me.
Excuse me. I believe this is our meeting, and if I choose to address you, I will. You'll get your 5 minutes, probably a little bit more, since we gave it to the other young lady, and I see no reason to be so contentious.
Being interrupted gives me reason, I believe.
No, I was addressing you, answering a question.
No, I was making
Continue.
I was making a statement.
Continue.
My concern with the questions I have is that in the other towns that I've seen that have something like that and have another thing, they also have what she was mentioning for maintenance and stuff, some sort of a caveat that the money that is going to go into fines is broken out or is addressed so that it just isn't a blanket. Very similar to what the fire department fire fines do. It can only be used for certain things. So that what you might want to do is a certain percentage of the fine has to go towards making sure paying for the registration, helping pay for the registration. A certain portion might be allocated towards making sure that other properties are maintained or something like that.
Are there any other comments? Seeing no one else coming forward, I'll ask for a motion to close the floor to the public.
Motion.
Motion made by Mr. Lynch. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Wetzel. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. May I now have a motion to adopt ordinance 1512? 15-12.
12, yep. I'll make that motion, that we
Motion.
adopt ordinance 1512.
Motion made by Mr. Lynch. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Wetzel. Are there any comments or questions on this from members of the council?
I'd like to say that I still feel that the fine is prohibitive, and I would rather see an escalating scale over a period of days. I don't like the fact that it says it gives a choice of 30 days notice of a receipt notice or within 10 days of receipt. It seems to me public health and safety are taken care of by other codes, and I don't like the fact that it's either one or the other. It means that often it could be just 10 days. I also don't like any other designated enforcement office. Seems to me that's a little too loose. Should be one or two individuals responsible for responding. I agree with some of our speakers that I believe we should have had the committee meet and at least have all discussions registered by the council. It seems to me that I'm much more in favor of 1512 than I was 15-7, but I still think it needs more work.
Thank you. Any other comments? May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Kadesh?
No?
Councilmember Lynch?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto?
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt ordinance 1512.
Thank you. Ordinance 1513, an ordinance of the Township of Vernon in the County of Sussex, New Jersey, authorizing the purchase of various equipment and repairs in, by, and for the township pursuant to NJSA 40:56-1, and appropriating therefore the sum of $80,000, and providing that such sum, so appropriated, shall be raised from the capital fund balance account of the township. This ordinance authorizes the expenditure of capital budget for the purpose of a lawnmower, a pickup truck, and replacing outdated computers. This ordinance does not create new debt, but simply allocates funds already in the capital budget. May I have a motion
So moved.
to open the meeting to hearing to the public?
Second.
Made by Mr. Kadesh, seconded by Mr. Lynch. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Anybody wishing to come forward and comment on this particular ordinance? Please state your name and the area of town that you reside.
Harry Martinson again, Vernon. I didn't see an addendum to this ordinance. And you have $45,000 worth of computer equipment and servers and apertures, whatever the word was. Okay. And that worries me. I have no way to be able to tell and further look at this. $45,000 seems like an awful lot. I'm wondering, do we have a game plan here for an IT, over time, when we're replacing which computer equipment and why? When did we last replace our computer equipment versus what we're spending now? You can get a server for $2,000 to $3,000. Okay, $45,000. Now, are we looking at replacing everything at once? My next question is, why? Do you have a structured?
Because the computers that are being replaced are Windows XP, and they're no longer supported. So those are primarily the computers that are being replaced en masse. Perhaps Mr. Zuckerman can speak more completely about that.
The answer to the question is yes, we do have a plan. We have looked at the computers that we're currently using. We've identified 25 computers that are in this ordinance to be replaced over a period of time. We have an outside IT person who's actually going to do the work, including software updates to those computers, and those programs will be updated. And our servers, which as you wander around the building, are in need of updating at this time.
That's why my question is over a period of time. It seems like we're getting everything.
It's going to take us, to do all 25 computers, it's going to take us several months.
It would take years.
Not years, no. It'll take months, not years.
Well, why? You can't do it over years. I mean, XP is just an operating system. It's not.
No, we want to do it over this summer. We want to replace those. They're just not functioning.
XP is just an operating system. It's
I know what it is, but it's not working well. Many of the computers that we have being serviced, utilized in the town hall are over 6, 7 years old.
I'm just saying, to me, it's a lot of money, and I'm an IT professional, so.
I think one of the issues that comes up is when we had our draft budget it said 20 computers and 10 upgrades. Then we received the budget, it said computers and a server. And now we have the ordinance, and it says replace of 25 computers that are no longer supported, and I get it, and the server hardware if necessary, which I can understand, but if it's a moving target. Every time it's written down, what we're pursuing is changing somewhat.
Yes, that's true.
Right, so
What
that...
we did is we had the Board of Education's IT people come in and do an independent survey review of our computer needs based on their suggestions and their study, plus our own in-house IT person. This is their recommendation.
But I'm just bringing up that I think over the course of the last few months, it's every time
Absolutely.
it's been written down, it's been changing.
Absolutely.
What it's called
Yes,
is changing.
You're right. As we develop and go through an in-depth review of what we need, it has been changing, yes.
Will it change going forward?
No.
Well, maybe, because they don't know if they need the server, so.
Are there any other comments from the floor? If not, I'll ask for a motion to close the meeting to the public.
Move.
Moved by Mr. Kadesh. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Mr. Wetzel. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. May I have a motion to adopt ordinance 15-13?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Kadesh. Is there a
Second.
second? Seconded by Mr. Lynch. Are there any comments or questions from the council on this particular ordinance?
I have a question. On here, on this pickup truck, it says it's for a pool vehicle. Did it say that before, that it was to be used as a pool vehicle between the DPW and the fire prevention?
I don't know that it said that, but that's going to be the design use. It's going to be a
I'm just
white
saying, it
pickup
says
truck.
that here because,
And we're going to put a plow on it so that it can be used for smaller areas, and it will be used, can be used by the fire prevention people.
right,
Figure
and
out
I
a
guess
name.
I just look at this and I say, just a few short years ago, we had 2 vehicles in fire prevention, and I'm not even sure what happened with one of the vehicles. Now we have one, and now this is going to be shared with DPW and fire prevention.
That's correct.
So it's just, where did the other vehicle go?
Went to the fire chiefs.
And we still have one vehicle?
We have
in fire-
one vehicle for fire prevention that is used daily.
Okay.
This will be shared with the DPW, and they'll be able to put a plow on it to get into areas the big trucks can't use.
Yeah, I think they plow the rescue squad buildings.
One went to the police department.
Yes.
One
One
of the
went to the-
expeditions went to the police
One's the
department.
police. Yep.
Hearing no other
And that's
comment?
one of the vehicles that you're speaking of with the fire prevention office. That became Chief Mills's car when he became chief, and then he got a new vehicle, and then Chief Mills passed that vehicle down to another officer in the police department.
Any other comments, questions? If not, I'll have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Keating?
Yes.
Councilmember Lynch?
Yes.
Councilmember Murphy?
Yes.
Councilmember Wetzel?
Yes.
Council President Rizzuto?
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt ordinance 15.
That completes our agenda. Council comments? Mrs. Murphy?
I just wanted to make a comment after the fact on ordinance 1512, the property maintenance, and just mention that several years ago, I watched when we had fines being assessed by the fire official, some of the fines became so excessive that they had to be negotiated. So I think when there is some apprehension with people of what this could bring, that's one of the items that, and John Urson, actually, I believe you were the town attorney at the time, when it was brought to your attention, because there were several fines, they could be going up to 20,000, and here you had a willing buyer, a bank willing to close, and you had fines being assessed. So something had to be done, because those homes were going to just sit there vacant and continue rotting. And like I said, the town did have to step up to the plate and do something. What I wanted to know is, does anybody know if, on Camp Sussex, since we're speaking of property maintenance, that fire, the investigation, was that ever concluded? Or does anybody know if there was ever an outcome of what they came up with the county?
I do not know.
And what's also bringing me to that is, I was requesting a letter showing that the current fire official had removed any fines or penalties from Camp Sussex. And I received a letter, we've all received a letter, but the way I read it does not state that they were removed by the fire official. So I'm going on record to say I'm still waiting for that letter to show that they came off, because if we're going to be adhering to a property maintenance ordinance, then we have a place to start. Because all I hear are people saying, it's an issue, it's a problem. But like I said, if there's supposedly a letter out there that says they were removed, I'd like to see it. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Kadish?
I have a special request that Mr. Erston's comments to the realtors be reported in the minutes verbatim, because I think there are a lot of fine detail there that isn't in this ordinance, and I would like to have a record as to what the procedures are for the application of it, and I thought that was a very important explanation that he made. And I would like to see that reported verbatim.
It's already recorded. Mr. Lynch?
I have no comment.
Mr. Wetzel?
No comment.
The only comment I have right now is that weather's getting warm. Children are playing in the streets, so please watch your driving and traffic through town. And all of you have a very nice week, and I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion made by Mr. Lynch, seconded by Mr. Wetzel. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.